Welcome to another episode. In today's episode, I will be talking about flight and telepathy. Now, I will be talking about flight in the astral plane, and of course, being able to fly and all the wonderful things that come with that, and all the things that aren't very practical per se. But I'll also be talking about telepathy and what I believe telepathy truly is. And as always, I'll be giving you specific examples of experiences that I've had that kind of give me this impression. So let's start with flying. And flying is amazing. I've been doing this since I was very small. Not only leaving my body, but flying, and that was the coolest thing to me at first. I do recall the first time I flew, and it was interesting because for those of you who know the Bay Area and you know the Richmond San Rafael Bridge, I really truly want you to picture that for a moment, because that is where I believe I flew. And the only reason why I say this is because when I've crossed that bridge in an actual vehicle, I've looked out as a passenger, of course, not the person that's driving. If I'm driving, I'm focused on the driving. But as a passenger, I've looked out and I've seen what I've seen out of my body, or what I did see out of my body. And it looks like it, or it appears to be, and you know what, I hope my memory isn't failing me. If one of my subscribers is from the Bay Area, perhaps they'll correct me, but there's like a hill or some sort of something that comes out of the water. It was almost like a small little island, and I remember this. I remember flying when I was 9, 10 years old, when I was first starting to astral project. And I remember dive bombing toward the ocean, just, like like a stunt plane, just going towards the ocean full speed. And then I remember seeing this island, and right before I hit the island, I pulled up into the air and rose really high up into the air. And I can recall that this was quite fun, quite amazing, quite a wonderful thing for me. Flying is amazing, but I want to talk about at least one more time that I was kind of flying or floating, and another thing about flying and how it's, I would say, impractical, and why I use the power of thought so much more than I use flight. Now, this is just my opinion, and this is what I think. Okay, perhaps you will feel differently about it, and your experiences, because you are in charge of your experiences, you may want to go out and fly and do everything in flight. For me, I have always thought to myself, because I've tried flying before and tried looking for specific places. And if you think about it, and I really want you to think about this for a moment, because I was thinking about this before I started this episode earlier today. I was thinking, everybody who has flown on a plane, right? Like you're going somewhere in a jet or something like that. I don't know, whatever airline you happen to fly. Everyone who's flown on a plane and looked out the window of the plane, looked down, and knows where they are, or knew where they were when they looked out the window, raise your hand. I can tell you, I'm not raising my hand, because I have no idea where I am if I'm flying from that perspective, because it's a different perspective. It's one thing to be walking, another thing to be driving, but to fly, you're looking at the world from a different point of view. And unless you have some kind of navigation system, it is difficult to be able to know where you are. And interestingly enough, I don't know if people really think about that when they think about flying in the astral plane. They just think, how cool is it gonna be to fly? Without thinking to yourself, how am I gonna be able to navigate and know where I am when I'm in flight? And it is very, very difficult, especially if you're not requesting your guide's help or those around you to kind of assist you with this. So it is impractical, in my opinion, to fly when you're in the astral plane. However, if you are first coming out there, if you are first entering into the astral plane in the beginning, if you're new at this, I say go have fun. I say jump into the air and fly as high as you can. Fly over the clouds, fly even higher than that. Go out into space. It is a wonderful thing to do that. And when you're done, just think, I want to be back in my body, and you're there. But planning something, right? Something practical. I want to go from point A to point B. I want to go from the United States to India because I know someone there and I'm going to go visit them. So I'm going to fly to India, right? No. At least in my opinion, it's probably not going to work out, and it certainly would not work out for me. And for you, you might have a different experience. But I do remember once, and this was another story that I had, flying. I was flying. Now, sometimes when I'm in flight, I'm just there, right? I leave my body and suddenly I'm flying over someplace. And I have to think that this is my guides guiding me to a place. And I remember coming over this, it was like a tall house. It was really tall. And there were 2 Roman numerals on the roof. Now, I don't remember what these Roman numerals were, but they were glowing. I do remember that. And there were 2 ladies in a window, and they were having a conversation. They were talking. I remember this because as I flew in, I saw them in the window. I saw the top. I saw those Roman numerals. Then I kind of descended, and I was just staring into the window. And these 2 ladies, they were dressed in a Victorian style dresses, I guess. Don't know how to, maybe I'll put this in the video, the visual part of this to kind of give you an idea. But it reminded me of ladies that would be in the Victorian age. That's how they would dress. And they were dressed in this manner. And they were having a conversation. And I was floating outside of the window observing them talk. And of course, and not of course, I mean, they weren't able to see me. Now, I think I've said this before. I don't know the difference between a spirit being and someone that has a physical body when I'm out of my body. It all looks the same to me. These 2 ladies, I don't believe they were spirit beings because I was floating outside the window as they were having this conversation. And I believe they even may have looked toward me and it was as if I wasn't there. So perhaps I was in some sort of, I don't know, a different reality or a different world. And I happened to be floating around and watching this. It was quite fascinating. Very, very interesting. Now, let's talk a little bit about telepathy. And I wanted to talk about this. I may even do a longer episode on telepathy, but I wanted to definitely get it in here. Now, I want to go over 2 experiences that I've already talked about. One was with my grandmother that passed away, and that was in the episode of contacting loved ones on the other side. Well, I went over the fact that I visited my grandmother. She was in the form of a little girl, and we communicated, but we did not communicate in a verbal way. It was through feelings. Now, it was interesting, and the way I like to put this is when I'm in the astral plane, it feels like my instincts are on steroids. It feels like they're 50,000% what they are when I'm in my body. It's amazing. It's like you feel what a person is thinking, but it's not in words. And you don't have to communicate with them in words. And with my grandmother, I didn't. I just understood that she missed me. I understood that she was asking, hey, are you coming with me to the other side? Because I'm taking these other souls to the other side because that's what I do. I help souls to cross over. I just knew that that's what it was. She didn't tell me these things verbally. The second example has to do with the connection that I made with the being in what I consider to be heaven. Now, for those of you who haven't watched this episode, I was in this, well, I don't want to even say magical place because that doesn't really define it. It was a place that, for me, was forged of light and forged of love. I had never been to a place like that, and since that occurred, have never been to a place that even resembled it. It was one of the most extraordinary experiences I've ever had in the astral plane. And when I communicated with this being, there was a being there, and his eyes glowed, and I had never felt the kind of love that this being was emanating. It was a love beyond anything I had ever felt. It was a love that was overwhelming. I had told this being that I was going through some sort of problem, and this being simply took me in his arms in a fatherly way, held me and kissed me on the cheek, and he never said anything, that he didn't have to. I felt him saying that I got your back. I love you unconditionally, and I got your back. But remember, it was a feeling. He didn't say it. It was the sense that I got. It was an overwhelming sense. And so for me, I want to talk a little bit about instincts, and I want to talk about sharpening yours and building it up and strengthening it. Because people talk about being able to develop your own psychic abilities, right? They tell you that they can help you to develop these things. I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not going to tell you that, I wrote this book and you can come and buy this information in this book and it'll, tell you how to develop your psychic abilities. It's really, truly simple, but perhaps one of the most complex things you may try to do. Develop your instinct, because that is the key. That is the secret to having this ability. Develop your instincts. When you're around someone or when you are in a situation, quiet your thoughts and listen. Listen to your, I guess we call it a gut feeling, but listen to it, because if you quiet everything else, it will magnify and you will be able to feel it. And feeling it, I think, is the same as hearing it, guiding you, telling you which way to go, telling you what to do. Your instincts are so valuable. Develop them, nurture them, and they will never, ever lead you wrong. So, I want to talk more about this in future episodes, about your instincts and developing them. For now, I'm going to end it here. But I truly want you to think about this, and I truly challenge you. I challenge you to really sharpen your instincts and to let you know that if you do this, your life, I believe, will improve immensely. Thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. And until next time, take care.